And good morning to everybody. Welcome to another Insane Productivity with Mortgage Coach Mastermind call. I always look forward to these calls, always get a lot of personal development in addition to hopefully delivering some leadership. So excited about the next hour. I am going to have to jump off about 5 minutes before the hour. I forgot to mention that to you, Danny, so hopefully you can close out the call. I've got Danny Horanyi on the call to help me co-host and lead on today's call. Danny, welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Happy to be here.
Good. And are you good with closing out the call?
Oh, for sure.
All right. All right. Now, we're not sure if we're going to have Michele Town join us, but we've got, I'm inviting both of them back as leaders. First and foremost, they're such amazing leaders as originators and team leaders in our industry. And they've both been through the program. So I've asked Danny to come and, for the next couple months, he's not going to be on every call, but when he's available, he's going to be a leader, and so is Michele Town. Michele, by any chance, are you on the call yet? All right, so she is actually in Hawaii, everybody. She is one of the absolute top mortgage professionals for RPM, and they're in Hawaii enjoying their President's Club event. So Michele, if you can hear us but you can't talk, hope you're having a great celebration with your team. So Danny, I mean, as you and I kind of prepped around, the goal is to get people to ask questions and to share stories throughout these calls. This is the reason we call it Mastermind, because it's not just Danny and I or myself and Todd usually as the leaders. It's a collaborative session. So one thing I want to remind everybody is that we do have this Facebook user group. I did post a poll at the beginning of the day, just trying to get a feel for where everyone's at. And so far, it looks like we have more people going through the program that are in, let's just say, the first quarter than we do in other quarters. And then, of course, I know I've got Danny and myself, and I can just recognize names. We've got a lot of folks that are alumni. How are you doing, Bliss? Bliss, be ready to come in and provide some leadership throughout the call. Let's see who else. Katie, say hi to Dan from me. And Katie, I'm assuming that you're in the first couple chapters, but be ready to be unmuted. By the way, folks, we will unmute you throughout this call. It's a mastermind call. That means the more participation from others, the better. So no one is above being called on. Be ready to ask a question or share a story. Tim Lamb, good to see you. I will definitely call on you. And Troy. So, by the way, also, if you do have a question, raise your hand, and we'll make sure you get your questions answered. We'll unmute you. Or if you prefer, you can type out that question in the Q&A session, and all questions will be answered. I don't think we've had a call yet where people had questions that just completely did not get answered. So if you've got it, bring it. So Danny, while we're waiting for folks to either raise their hand or ask a question before we call on someone, how would you like to kick this off? Is there any stories or strategies or things that you think would be a great way to kick off today's call?
Yeah, actually, in prepping for this, and especially, I had a chance just very briefly I jumped on the Facebook page and saw that the majority of the people were in that module 1 through 4, and just thinking back to the previous Insane Productivity Mastermind calls that we've had, we really have focused a lot of energy on module 4, that idea of multitasking and converting to single tasking, and how the switching mode kind of makes you really operate as if you were stoned. That's how productive you are when you're multitasking based on scientific research and study. But I think what I'd like to kind of take even one step back and get into module 3 a little bit, where that module 3 really talks about staying disciplined and staying optimistic and keeping a relaxed mode when you're problem solving. And I was reflecting on our business and our January and heading into February here, 2017, and business is getting really, really challenging. And I'm just going to assume that other people on this call have challenges in their business. They're retooling, kind of dusting off some of the strategies and tools that kind of atrophied a little bit over the course of 2016. The analogy that I've been using with our team is that in 2016, we were at an all-you-can-eat buffet. It was really just a matter of how many times do you want to get out of your seat and walk to the buffet and fill up your plate, and that determined how full you were going to be. And we went from that all-you-can-eat buffet to a mode where we're in the, in the savannah hunting for our food again, which we all have those skills. We've used them before, and even throughout the course of 2016, almost for fun, we would kind of still do that. And there certainly was a lot of effort in the realtor space and other channels of business. But what I think is a huge risk for us right now as salespeople and originators and leaders is to get anxious. And I know I've been anxious. I'll be super honest about it. I'll go so far as to say I've been stressed, and a lot of my focus and energy over the last couple weeks, once I finally woke up to this, like, hey, this is not a good way to operate. And I know this from reading a ton of books and being a complete nerd, that when you're stressed, your range of options that your mind is willing to focus on narrow, and your ability to be creative around solution making is diminished. So I guess just kind of opening up this thought, this idea, and really, opening it up to the audience here. How are you focusing on some of the strategies from Module 3 to relax, to stay, focused rather than tensing up, and to really focus on the what comes out later in Insane Productivity as you evolve, is kind of focusing on those vital few things. But there that is, Dave. Yeah, the less effort accomplishes more. That's really, I think, one of the key things, is that if you can take the time to be intentional about what you need to do and focus on the controllable things versus letting all of the pain and frustration and emotion of all the challenges in the market overcome you, you will win, and you can stay optimistic and almost certain that you will win if you can kind of focus on those things rather than letting all of that uncertainty that's out there in the world overcome you.
I think that's an awesome topic. And by the way, Danny, just because we got so many new folks going through the class, so many of the people know you, but I see so many brand new names. Just, if you could let people know what market you're in, give them a feel for the kind of production that you do, and I think they'll get to know you in terms of what you know from an Insane Productivity. But where are you at, and what kind of volume are you doing?
In San Diego, California, and I work with a very large team, a Gaylord Hanson team at Caliber Home Loans, including processors, underwriters, everybody that is under our roof. We have about 41 people there. I'll talk about this year's goal because I want to just stay very forward-looking. This year, our team is we've made a projection of closing 1,200 units for $565 million.
And what did you guys do last year?
We did about just shy of 890 units for about $390 million.
Got it. And you as a production leader, I mean, what kind of volume are you doing? Is your piece of that puzzle?
Yeah, I was personally involved in about 200 million of production.
Got it. So I mean, we're talking about a lot of families being served. I've interviewed Danny a lot of times, at Mortgage Coach, and his interviews are among the best interviews we've ever done. So if you're hearing Danny for the first time, I mean, this is a guy that just operates at a really high level. He's done over 1,000 Mortgage Coach reports. So all the families he serves are, they're doing things right. They're doing things the Mortgage Coach way. So having Danny say, hey, last year was the buffet, and this year we're really having to hunt. I mean, I can only imagine what it's like for others, because you guys are just so dialed in, so well known in your market. So with that said, folks, if you want to raise your hand and you've got either a question or you've got some leadership you want to bring to the table, do that. I do want to call on Bliss at this time. So Bliss, I am going to unmute you. Would love to know how you're doing. What's working for you from an Insane Productivity perspective, and what might be a challenge that you'd like to table for everybody right now.
Super. Can you hear me? Because I'm not sure I'm in the right format.
We can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah. So probably my biggest challenge right now is exactly what you guys were just talking about. Last year we just had to keep up, and this year the real estate agents in my area are telling me they're being inundated with calls, texts, emails, drop-bys from lenders. So everybody's coming out of the woodwork and trying to get that piece of the pie. So I'm trying to be creative. I'm trying to be very, what's the word, innovative and in front of them. So that's really what I'm trying to spend my time on and not get discouraged and not let my team get discouraged.
Got it. So question to both Danny and Bliss, how is business, lead flow? How is referral and lead flow compared to, your expectations?
So I actually just went back and looked, compared it to January of 2016 and January of 2015. My leads this month were fabulous and super thrilled about that, but my competition is very strong and a lot of these leads are just shopping. So I feel very optimistic about the whole year and how it's going to turn out. I just think we're going to have to work harder for the business, and we're going to have to make sure we stay in front of people and excel at customer service.
Makes sense. By the way, ready for some superpowers with Mortgage Coach, more competition, let's crush the competition. Danny, what about you? How are you guys doing on lead flow, and are you seeing the same thing?
Identical to what Bliss just described. Our lead flow for January exceeded our expectations. We were shooting for about 180 leads, and we ended up with 200, which was certainly better than expected. Not where we need to be as far, to close 1,200 units. We need to certainly be higher than that because we're not converting at 50% lead to funding. So we're definitely going to need to ramp that up. But seasonally, 200 leads is fantastic. The challenge, though, is it's not just the fact that the people are coming out of the woodwork because they're starting to get hungry, right? Buffet lines shut down. They're like, hey, what am I going to do now? So they start, they show up at the realtor pitch sessions. They've never been there before. All of a sudden, it's 80% lenders, 20% realtors, and they're showing up at open house. The lenders are showing up at open houses where they never were before. That's one element of it, and that's absolutely manageable. That's just normal competition, healthy competition, and we know, and we're all here on this call because we want to sharpen our tools and set the buying criteria so high that those other competitors are really unable to keep up with us. We want to feel like they're next to us and competing with us, but really we're already 1 or 2 laps ahead of them, and they don't even know it, right? And that's using the tools like Insane Productivity and the total cost analysis to introduce strategies to our realtors and our clients. What I'm finding as being another threat, though, is these lenders that are truly desperate. They're at a point where they're really not. They probably recognize that they're not going to make it, and they're using tactics that are, frankly, in one case we saw, frankly, illegal. And so I think we have to be super vigilant with our clients to protect them from the predators out there that are not professional hunters out there doing good work, but that are scraping and clawing because they're in danger.
Yeah, no, good. Great conversation. So I put on my screen the not Mortgage Coach, but the Insane Productivity with Mortgage Coach 12 reminders. And for everybody that's new to the program and you're in that first quarter, this was something that we put together with the first graduating class. And, while we learned a lot, we probably learned 20, 30 new strategies, we said, hey, what are the 12 that I really want to have on one piece of paper. I want to have it in my work area. So these are all things that came out of Insane Productivity. Some of these things are from Module 8. And, there's almost something represented from every module that you just want to remember. So I'm just going to have this up as a reminder. I'm going to kind of show it on the screen, pull it back so it doesn't get distracting. Danny and Michele, feel free to call out. We have had Michele join us, so as I mentioned as I kicked off the call, Michele Town. Michele, we've got a lot of new people in the program, and you and Danny are really here as co-leaders. You've been through the program, and now you're coming back as return students, but the goal is that you want to learn the content, so no better way to learn than to be a leader. So if you could just tell folks what market you're in, your production, and then I'd love to have you bring some leadership to the Insane Productivity Mastermind.
Absolutely. Can you hear me, Dave?
We can.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. I love these Friday calls. They're really important to me. They help me stay focused and get ready for the weekend and right frame of mind for me. I am in the Orange County market, a little bit of North San Diego, mostly South County, Orange County. Last year, personal production did a little over 100 million with 235 units. This year, I partnered up with 2 other team members, and our goal production is 200 plus million with, we want to do about 300 units. And, building a team has been a little bit of struggle with, merging in all the personalities, but we've really started adapting and coming together. I love Insane Productivity. For me, topic 4 is, or module 4 is perfect for me. I just had, one of those experiences with multitasking that completely exhausted me. For me, I allow myself, because in this business, I have to multitask a little bit. I allow myself 2 hours a day of multitasking, and then the other 6 to 8 hours I'm, one-on-one with my clients or one-on-one with my realtors. I had an event on Tuesday that required me to stay on a conference call for 6 hours, so apparently I multitasked those 6 hours. I want to tell you, when I was done at 5 o'clock, I felt like I had been run over by a truck because I'm so not used to multitasking for that long. My brain was spent. If you haven't tried the challenge that Darren's given you, just try it for a week. I promise you, you will be so surprised. It's incredible. I also wanted to touch on what Bliss said as well, and what Danny said as well, is this market is tough right now, and we've got so many of our realtors that we've developed over the years that are being called on by everybody in the field. I'm actually limiting my phone calls to my agents and letting them know, hey, I'm here. I know you're getting inundated right now, so I'm going to respect your time. Just let me know. I'm staying in front of them. Like Bliss, I'm being very creative on how I stay in front of them. And just know that this seems to be what happens the first quarter of the year, but by the time the first quarter of the year ends out, at least for my experience, the people that aren't serious and aren't dedicated to the follow-through or get defeated, those people will die down and you won't have as many people calling your realtors. So just hang in there and, get through this first quarter and just keep your nose to the ground and head held high, and know that your realtors are going to love you if you've worked them, and if you stay in front of them and bring them value, everything will be fine.
Yeah, no doubt. That's some great wisdom. I loved how you kicked it off, Danny. Stay calm, stay focused. I think pulling from an important strategy from Insane Productivity, it's just be super clear on your big 3 goals. What are your big 3 goals? Have you reviewed your big 3 goals? Are you measuring your big 3 goals? When I interviewed Darren a couple weeks ago to kick off 2017, I came up with 4 things that 5 things to be laser focused on, and I'll show a visual of that in a minute. I don't want to switch while I'm talking, but I'll pull it up when I'm done talking. But that concept of being super clear on the big 3, being super clear on the key behaviors that you need to change and manage. Make sure you're measuring. Again, we're getting ahead for those of you that are in the first quarter of this program in Module 8. Darren just crushes it in terms of how to drill and scorecard what you're doing. But constantly, are you winning the day? Are you winning the week? And then the concept of pruning. We got to say no to some things to say yes to what's most important. So that's all just right out of the Darren Hardy playbook. And then, of course, every family needs to get a total cost analysis now more than ever, knowing that there's more competition for every lead. Putting your best foot forward with every family matters. And when you're meeting with realtors, having whatever is the most tailored mortgage coach strategy, having that conversation with your agents is just important. So with that said, I would love for anybody that has a big 3, I'm going to write it in here right now. What are your big 3 goals. If you could fill that out at some point, either during the call or after the call. Last week we asked what were your big 3 projects. So for those of you that responded to that, thank you and great job. For those of you that didn't respond, I think just reading and seeing what other insane productivity leaders, what their goals are or not what their projects are, I think could be helpful. But please share, what are your big 3 goals from an insane productivity perspective? Share that either during the call or after the call. So I'm going to call on someone from the audience, but Danny, I wanted to give you a chance to add on to anything Michele just said or anything that's on your mind.
Oh no, yeah, that was awesome, Michele, and I completely agree. And I would love to hear from the audience.
Okay, so let's see who we should call on. Let me go out there. And again, remember, folks, raise your hand if you have a question or you've got something you want to talk about or you want to share. Raise the hand, and I will bring you in. But for now, I am going to call on Troy. Troy, you always inspire me. You always bring a great conversation. Do you have any questions, or do you have any success stories so far?
Actually, the last week I was talking about the lack of getting back off track with the multitasking. And, it goes right into Module 3 in regards to truthfully in a way and 4. But multitask, I think one of the biggest things was I remember listening to Darren this morning again, and he talked about the monkey on the back and what we tolerate. And those are 2 huge things when it comes to multitasking, because if you let people with the monkey on your back, I mean, you're letting other people dictate your day and dictate your actions, and which in turn really puts you into, when you're going to creates the ability to multitask without you even realizing it.
No doubt. So how are you doing on multitasking right now? Are you feel like
180. I'm back to the way I was. I'm back to my jam set. I'm back to doing those jam sessions, and those are huge when it comes to focusing, and especially when we're back to the Savannah field again, trying to hunt for business. Focus is huge, and the jam sessions are probably the #1 thing that's helped me a lot this week get back on track.
What jam sessions did you do?
I did started one on social media, which I will be doing again this afternoon, finishing it up, but and fine-tuning my systems and getting those finally in place.
Good deal. All right, man. Well, if you do have a question, come back and ask it, and thank you for sharing, my friend.
Will do it. Thank you.
Tim Lamb, any questions, any success stories to share?
Dave Savage, can you hear me all right, bud?
We can hear you, buddy.
Let
everybody know what market you're in and who you're with.
Perfect. I am in the Midwest, the state of Iowa, a little community called Cedar Rapids, and I work for a bank called Bankers Trust. Production last year was 137 units for like 27 million bucks. So these people doing 100 million or 200 million, I'm a little envious of those big numbers, but we're living in the Midwest. We can't get that big of numbers.
All good. Congratulations. That's great business, brother.
Yeah, thank you. The thing that I've been focused on in the last month here has been the jam sessions, and I've really focused first thing in the morning, nailing those jam sessions. And a couple things that have come out of that is, I think we've talked about it before, the vital few that we need to be doing in our business. So I've really pinned it down to partnership planning, meeting with my referral partners, client meetings, really getting those face-to-face meetings and nailing that process. And then the last thing was getting better. So if we can nail those 3 things in our business, I think all the stuff that everybody else has been talking about, our competition, our challenges, and so forth, if we can nail those 3 things in our jam sessions, I think we're going to have a great 2017.
I can't argue with that. Anything we could do to help you, as we kick off this program and you're here today, any questions you have for myself, Michele, or Danny?
I think the only question that I have is I added a teammate assistant last year, and I'm just trying to figure out how to keep fine-tuning that process. So how do I get more stuff off of my desk and onto hers that'll keep me in these vital few 3 things that I need to do? So if there's any tips or topics they can do about continuing offloading more of your, I'll call it busy work, and I'm using air quotes in there, that we don't need to be doing as the loan originator, that'd be helpful for me.
So Danny and Michele, I'm going to give you guys a both run at that because I think that's something, you know, everybody struggles with from time to time. So Danny, why don't you go first, and Michele, be ready to add some value to that question.
So actually, this is a super good transition because I think that one of there's 2 main things that pop into my head immediately. One is the monkey situation, right? So once you add a team member, all of a sudden you actually your population of monkeys starts to grow, right? So everybody's carrying the monkeys around, and if you're not careful, all of a sudden your office will just be full of all the monkeys, and you're dealing with that instead of dealing with those vital few things that you have to focus on. And so there's a lot of elements that come into this. So one is trust, right? So you have to build the trust with that team member in both directions. So it's not just them, you trusting them to do a super good job. It's them trusting you to give them the space to make mistakes that are completely legitimate mistakes to the best of their ability. What we always tell our team is, you know, if you gathered up all the data and you made the best call you can make and it was the wrong call, you're going to be supported. And then what that allows those team members to do, when they actually see that support, is that they're willing to make those calls again and they're willing to make mistakes. Now, if you listen to Darren Daly today, I can't remember if it was today's or yesterday's, where they talked about, it was actually yesterday's, it was the failure, Darren Daly, where he talked about how the greatest successes are also the greatest failures. And he has another book called The Entrepreneurial Roller Coaster, where he talks about the success and failure pendulum. It's super important to accept the failure of your team member and almost celebrate it, as long as they're dedicated, they're learning from their mistakes, and don't let your reactions scare them into not taking risks and not taking things off your plate. Because if they think that you're just going to come at them whenever they make the smallest mistake, they're going to stop being empowered and they're going to come to you and just drop their monkeys in your office all the time. And so that, I would say that's probably the biggest thing as far as trust building. And another analogy is almost that I heard in another book, which is where I get all my information, PS, is that if you think about how a baby learns how to talk or walk, you know, when they first take a step and fall down, that was a failure. You know, they didn't just jump out of their crib and start running. But as, you know, parents or even aunts, uncles, grandparents, you're celebrating that first little step and fall down, and it isn't until many, many times where they fall that they're actually running around. If we stood over them and screamed at them and said, oh, you should be running right now, I mean, think of how many kids would want to take that next step. So super, super important to just give the team member the space so that they feel super, super pumped about taking stuff off your desk and not doing it as well as you would have done.
That is awesome, Danny. Michele, anything you'd like to add to that? And then, Tim, I'm going to come back to you and make sure that we've answered your question in a way that's useful to you.
Absolutely. Tim, growing a team is, I would like to tell you it's easy, but it's really hard for us mortgage people who are control freaks who think we can do it better than anybody else. The challenge that I came into when I was growing my team was that I really did think I could do everything better than everybody else. And what I learned is, although I could do it, I wasn't the best person to do it anymore. And I start off all of my calls now when I'm talking to, you know, potential clients and potential, you know, referral partners, is that although I am qualified to do everything, that it's not the highest and best use of my time. And that if I call it my little army that works with me, and they are very dedicated, and I have empowered them 100%, just like Danny had said. I let them make the mistakes. I actually want them to make the mistakes. And I'm quick to correct, but anything that's critical. But when I let them fall, I'm going to use the baby analogy as well. It's like when you tell your kid the stove is hot, the stove is hot, the stove is hot. You can tell them 100 times the stove is hot, but sometimes they need to touch the stove to realize it's hot. So I let them touch the stove, and I let them burn. And my team, the people that I've empowered on my team they care just as much as I do, which is why that's probably the most critical thing for me when I'm choosing somebody to be on the team, is I want to make sure that they're dedicated and that I give them all the training they can. My coach, Cindy, gave me the best advice when I was working with my teams and I was struggling because I was inserting myself too much. And what she said was, do you trust them? And she goes, if you don't trust them, they don't need to be on your team. And that is something that develops, and it's something you just have to let them fail, because our biggest successes come from our failures. It really does.
Wow. I think Tim got some great answers. Tim, I'll let you be the judge of that, though. Was that helpful, one? And two, do you have any follow-up questions to that? Because I think a lot of folks share that struggle.
No, thank you guys, first of all, for pouring into the group and especially me on that topic. It's one of the best analogies that I've gotten provided as I'm growing my team is envision a field goal post. As you, as the professional that's done it for 16 years, in my case, you're kicking it down the middle every time, and your assistants are still going to kick it within the field goal post, but it may not be exactly what you would have done, but it still gets the results that you're looking for. So I think that's a great thing to share with our group is it's not going to be exactly what you would do, but it still gets the jobs done. And then most importantly, your clients don't necessarily know that it was off by 3 feet and it wasn't absolutely perfect, but it still got it done. And I love the idea of trust, and that's one of the things that I've told my team is I want you to own this portion of the process, and I want you to be as best as you possibly can. So failure is going to happen, but bring it to me. We'll talk about it and grow from it. So thank you guys very much for inputting in that stuff.
Well, Tim, hey, thanks for engaging. And I mean, the best way to learn and to get better, I mean, it's to ask questions, and then it's to lead. You know, so far we have not had a lot of questions or engagement from the group. I don't see any hands raised, and no one has asked a question except for, by the way, Lazar, thank you for letting me know at the beginning of the call that I wasn't sharing my screen. So just a reminder, it would be very helpful to us, you know, first of all, if you participated. So vote, let me know where you're at in terms of what module you're on. It's helpful to not only know, you know, if you're on this call, what module you're on, but it's nice to see, oh, you know, this person clicked this, you know, it's good to know that. So it'd be great if you guys filled that out. So far, you know, I don't want to say the engagement's low, but, you know, it's a little low. We've only had 14 people view it, and it looks like we've had about a half a dozen engage. I do want to say thank you to the folks that answered the goal question. So Bobby and Tom, oh wow, we've got 4 people. Oh, that's projects, so that's going back. So the newest question, what goals are you on? Bliss, thank you for taking the time to put in where you're at. I know that will be helpful for folks. So let's see, who should we call on? And then, you know, by the way, just to give Danny and Michele a chance to prep, knowing that we want everybody driving, you know, the Mortgage Coach mission of every family getting a total cost analysis, I would love to know what Mortgage Coach conversation you're having with agents. So when it comes back to you, if you could be ready to share a Mortgage Coach strategy. And Michele, well, I know you get a lot of agent business. If you want to kind of tailor yours around, you know, what you're using with your Zillow leads and how you're bringing that to agents. So it's, you know, it's a little more of a hybrid to your model. No problem. So let's see. Let's call on Bobby Moody. Bobby, you didn't have your hand raised. Oh,
hang on.
We're getting feedback over there.
Well, that's because I couldn't hear.
By the way, Bobby, I put you back on mute. If you get a chance, let me know, and I'd love to call on you, ask a question, but we were getting a little feedback. I'm going to call on Katie. Katie, how are you doing, Katie? You were unmuted.
Hi.
Are you on the call?
I am, yes, thank you. This
Good.
is my first time on the call, and it's very exciting already. I've appreciated everybody's input, and I'm excited to be on.
Right on. Well, hey, Dan tells me you're crushing it. Have you gone through a month? Yeah. What are you doing right now? Where are you at with production?
Yeah. So so last month we had 9 fundings, and this month we're off to a pretty good start. My goal is to get to 15. My average, I think, is about 7 to 9, based off of last year's production. But I'm really trying to get to 15. And I know a lot of people on this call think 15. That's probably not very many, but yeah, I'm in bigger goals once I creep up there.
Hey, Katie, first of all, that is fantastic. And while we do have some of the most successful loan officers in America on this call, trust me, you're doing awesome. I mean, that is fantastic.
Thank you.
And it's not, well, I know you've got a long backstory in the mortgage industry. I mean, you've really only been back at it as an originator for, how long has it been since you really got back into being a full-time mortgage originator?
Yep. June will be 3 years. And when I was in my previous role with B of A, I took advantage of the low-hanging fruit and never had the confidence to call on realtors because I knew we weren't going to close on time. So when I started here with partners is really when I started to grow my referral partner basis with realtors and looking for purchase business, and that's the majority of my business now.
Good. Well, congrats on the success. So have you gone through a module yet, or are you just?
I have not.
Okay. So thank you for being candid on that. Make sure you go through at least one before next week. And
and where do I find those?
I'll do that offline. I'll make sure someone gets you an email so you have access to that. And if you have a question, raise your hand and come to the next call and be ready to share what your takeaway is so far.
Sounds great. Thanks, Dave.
Right. Hey, good to have you, Katie. Say hey to
Thank
Dan.
you. I will. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Let's see if anybody's raised a hand yet. No hands raised. So by the way, everybody, be ready to be called on. You're on this call. I'm going to call on someone in about 5 or 10 minutes. But for now, Danny, why don't you share a mortgage coach strategies and how that's helping you be insanely productivity with agents.
So the one that so in our market right now, inventory is extraordinarily low, and I believe that's a nationwide problem. And there's a lot of conversations that we're having around low inventory. Last Friday, touched on the move up analysis, how that's a great presentation for realtors to respond to that pain point, which is that maybe they're not meeting their goals or on track to meet their goals just because there's no homes to list or for their buyers to buy. So it's just a environment that's limiting them. And so to kind of move into the next phase of that, we had a client just this week where they had made an offer and they for $740,000, and they had asked for the seller to give back $6,000, so that they're essentially to target some of their closing costs. I'm not 100% sure how they came up with that number, but they were very, very emotionally attached to it. And due to the low inventory, the seller, feeling like they had some pricing power, responded back saying $740 is a great price, but I'm not going to give you $6,000, right? Because that's coming directly out of their net. And the clients were ready to walk away from that deal. They were absolutely ready to walk away. And what the seller's agent was just exasperated. They're like, oh my gosh, we're here at the 1 yard line with a counteroffer. All we need to do is sign it. It's one of 4 houses for sale in the entire zip code, and they're willing to walk away over $6,000 on a $740,000 property. It just seemed crazy. So they reached out and said, hey, is there anything you can do to help? And we did what's called it's really a cost of waiting analysis. So that's kind of the fundamental analysis strategy, total cost analysis strategy that we use, but we implement it in these counteroffer situations. The intention behind it is to take the emotion out of it. So both the buyer and the seller are digging their heels in over these numbers because they feel that that's what they need to do to be responsible. Responsible seller sells for $740 no credit. Responsible buyer buys for $740 with a credit, and they just can't bridge that divide, and they get kind of tied up in the emotion of winning that argument. And in fact, the buyer would go back on the market, and the typical buyer right now, due to the lack of inventory, is taking about 45 days to get into, well, it depends, but in certain pockets, certainly the one that this person was shopping in, 45 days. So we basically showed them, long story short, that if they went back into the open market and waited a span of time, given the trajectory of interest rates and given the trajectory of home values, which are continuing to rise, we showed that if rates went up 0.25% and if the price of the home went up only 1% over that time, which is obviously debatable, but certainly a good point of context for them, that by taking the counteroffer, they would have a monthly payment that was $87 lower than the alternative case, where they got into a similar property, and that their their overall cost would be almost $4,000, $3,766 better at the end of 5 years than if they ended up getting that credit today or waiting for a home where they were going to capture that credit. So I need to kind of strip out the names of the clients and things like that, but once I do that, I'll post it to the message board so you can see how that analysis actually looks. I did a live call with them, so I don't have a video attached. Maybe I'll just throw one on there so you can kind of see the cadence of how it was explained.
Yeah, no, again, just a great strategic way to serve a family. You help the family, make an informed decision based off of, their assumptions and some potential risk in the market. You provided some perspective, contrast, like, hey, a point in rate, what does that matter, and how can I contrast that and compare to the situation at hand? So I mean, that's that is the difference between an insanely productive mortgage coach and an average loan officer. I mean, average loan officer would not have been able to play that game. An insanely productive mortgage coach, you crushed it, you differentiated, and I'm sure your agent is pretty stoked about the value you brought to the table.
Oh yeah, she thought she was getting back into the market with these people and having to show them another 3 weekends worth of houses. So I mean, think about, she can now go sell 1 or 2 more houses because this person got into contract.
Yeah, no, dude, that's huge. By the way, folks, I did post a couple videos. Danny shared this strategy, I don't know, it was probably 2 years ago. And then also in that interview, it was such an awesome interview. I mean, it's got to be one of the 5 all-time best interviews I've done. But it was so good that I had my team edit it and created a playlist of your 5 realtor strategies. So I put a link to the Gaylord Hanson team, 5 ways they're using Mortgage Coach. And then, of course, I put a direct link to the counteroffer analysis. So, and I mean, we're talking like 5 minute. I mean, that's like a 5-minute video. For a half an hour, you guys could crush it with this stuff. So, hey, Michele, any comments to Danny's strategy? And then I'm going to throw the hot potato to you.
I absolutely love that strategy. I've done something similar where what we do is when we have realtors that call us and say, we'll ask them, what my top realtors, one of the first questions I ask them is, do you have any buyers that are on the fence or anybody that's telling you that they want to wait? And I ask them, would you mind if I prepare a presentation, and I put it in my realtor's name, and they send it over to the client to say, hey, this is what it is to wait. I don't do videos, I do voiceover, so I do a voiceover on everything to show them, again, what the predictions are on what's going to happen with rates and, what kind of buying power they're going to lose. And I think Danny's was great to show them, listen, if you wait just 2 months, you're going to be paying this much more. I mean, it's a great opportunity to either bump up their rate to cover closing costs if it's a cash flow situation, or just to get the psychology back to where it's supposed to be. Let's look at the numbers. It's not about the emotion of who's going to win the battle, because nobody's going to win in that case. Let's look at the numbers and let's, again, get back to the basics of being your financial coach. That's what we're here to do. We're to financially coach you and show you, is this the right thing for you and your family? I use my commitment level to Mortgage Coach has increased dramatically over the last 2 months. I'm sure, Dave, you've probably seen ours go up. My team just went through training on it so that everybody on my team knows how to present the Mortgage Coach presentation and understands what we're giving, the value that it's giving to the client. We also, if you're not doing this and you can, it would be terrific for your agents, especially in the first-time homeowner market. I would present a rent versus own for their open houses and say, hey, let them print out the pages to show people, by renting versus owning, this is what you're saving, even though it may be a little bit more than you're paying right now. Just in 5 years, what the benefit of owning a home is going to do for you. That's had great success with people, not only in my team, but also in my office. So, and the last thing I would suggest is when you're doing a mortgage coach presentation to your client, make sure your realtor is included on that. And I even pick up the phone and call the agent and say, hey, I just sent them over their mortgage coach. I've sent you a copy as well. I would love for you to open it up as well to see what they're seeing, and they love it. They're just so impressed by the level of commitment that we have as their financial coach, other than being a salesperson.
Love it, love it. Well, hey, let me break this down, and also let me make sure I got it right. That script you said at the beginning I thought was slick. So you've got a realtor script. It goes, make sure I have it right. Do you have any buyers on the fence, or who, hang on, can you see what I'm writing here, by the way? Who are waiting to see what's going to happen with the interest rates? That's the question you're asking, right?
I'm asking them, do you have any buyers on the fence, and why?
And why?
I probably think, yeah, the most important thing for me is find out if you ask the question to the realtor, or if you can get the client on the phone, that's even better. I always ask them why. Why do they want to wait? And if they tell me it's because they want to save $10,000 more, I say, well, let me show you what that looks like. And usually when you put it on paper to graph, and they look at it and go, okay, $10,000 only saving me $30 a month, are you kidding me? And we can get you into a house today. A lot of times you can get them off the fence. Some people you can't. I don't push it. I just want to, again, I really push that we're their coach.
So, and by the way, I'm writing it out as total cost analysis, but what do you call it? Like when you say, let me show you what it looks like, do you reference mortgage coach in a way that's, kind of your term, or do you call it a total cost analysis? How do you position it?
I position it as, if they're first-time buyers, I show them a rent versus own, and my title on the mortgage coach is, for instance, Meehan rent versus own. If it is a total cost analysis for different options, I just call it a presentation, because I don't think anybody understands what a total cost analysis is. But that's on me, because I haven't explained it well. That's where I'm struggling. I struggle with that one. That's the one that I have the hardest time explaining. So I'm relearning it myself as well.
Okay, so your wheelhouse is a rent versus own. And real quick, Danny, because I just want to put a script so it's documented, we can kind of reference it. What do you guys, when you're positioning a total cost analysis, what's the term you use, and how do you phrase that, just so we can write up a best practice script here?
I think I more often refer to the total cost analysis as a mortgage coach presentation. And now that I think about it, I think the term total cost analysis is a little bit more descriptive, and kind of going back to the call with, I believe it was Robert Stover, where he was talking about, kind of that focus flipping and kind of getting people focused on the total cost of their mortgage rather than rather than the interest rate, kind of linking the total cost analysis to the total cost of your mortgage, just having that framing would be good. But I definitely use the term mortgage coach way more often than I use the term total cost analysis.
Okay. Well,
for reference the total cost analysis.
Yeah, and I'm not here to, debate tomato versus tomato. I mean, the term total cost analysis is a mental trigger. So there was a lot of thought into, why we called it. It is something that has some intuitive value, but heck, internally at Mortgage Coach, we debate. Do we call it a mortgage coach presentation? Do we call it a total cost analysis? Rent versus own? But, and then again, I've heard hundreds of loan officers, describe it hundreds of ways. The one thing I
through my head. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem, Daniel. We'll hear what came through your head. But one thing for sure is that all the best mortgage coach loan officers, they call it something, so that by the time you are showing it to the client, you have created value. Whatever you're going to show them, they're excited about it. They're like, wow, that's valuable. Michele, I really liked how you tailored the question. You kept it so simple, and you did not lead them. Like the way I was writing it, I was kind of leading them. and I think you significantly upgraded it. It is a mistake I almost made. But, you know, hey, do you have any buyers on the fence, and why? And then just shut up and listen. And if there's a little bit of, you know, they pause before they answer it, that's okay. Just wait, see what happens, and then tailor something that delivers value. That's solid. Danny, what was running through your head?
I just, you know, I was picturing myself in the conversation with the client, and I often will say, you know, this is a side-by-side presentation of your options so that you can make the best decision for your family.
Boom. You know, I mean, if that isn't plain English, you know, again, assuming that was tailored. The client wants to see some side-by-side options, but what a nice close so that you can make the most informed decision for your family, you know. So, all right. Well, we got about 9 minutes left. I'm going to be jumping in about 4 minutes, and I'm going to let Danny and Michele close it out. Tim Lamb, you raised your hand. I have unmuted you. Did you have a question or a comment?
Dave, I was just thinking about as the market continues to get tough, I'm trying to figure out how I can get more referrals from clients that I'm currently working with. So I'd love to hear what Danny and Michele are doing with the clients that they have in their pipeline now, how they are potentially trying to garner referrals from those clients that they know are going to be friends and family and so forth. So some current client referral strategies would be great.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to leave and let you guys kind of crush that one. So one, I would really recommend that you mentioned a minute ago, Danny, my interview that I did with Robert Stover. It was either 2 or 3 weeks ago, but he did an interview on how to stand apart in 30 seconds or less. But then he gave just an epic strategy at the end, and he gave a strategy, and I've had a number of loan officers that have done this, where they're creating a move-up analysis with their agent, and then they're sending that to their agent's database. And then Danny, I know after you heard that call, you kind of came from it. And you said, hey, I'm gonna send that to my database. So my last contribution for today is to remind folks that call was Stover. I don't know. I'll let Danny tell you whether you thought it was good, but I thought it was pretty epic, and I think there's a lot of meat in that call that would help you with what you just asked. Danny, I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to but I'm going to leave in about 3 minutes, and I'm going to hear you talk for 3 minutes, and then Michele, if you could add some thought to that, and we'll see you all next week. But this will be my last comments, and you're up, Danny.
Actually, Michele, why don't you start this one off? I'm super curious, actually, what your strategies are right now.
Absolutely. So what I did is I went back through because I have 200, I went through my 2016 closings. And what I did was I started with the month of January. So I just finished my last January presentation. And I do a mortgage total cost analysis for the client to let them know where they're at. And I tell them what's available today. And I also throw in, a different option. So I'll give you a success story on one. It was a loan that was on a 5-year ARM. He's 1 year into his 5-year ARM, and we presented options for him and just wanted to let him know, hey, this is where current market rates are. It's a fixed rate now, say 4.25%. He was paying 3.875%. And he called us back and said, I really appreciate you looking out for me. And we actually my wife and I decided that we're worried about the economy and we want to go ahead and move on to the fixed rate. Is that rate still available? And I said, absolutely. And although it was a higher payment for him, he realized that, in the long run, this is going to be their long-term house. This is the best option for him. So we started a refinance for him in a market that shouldn't be it's not refinance friendly right now. I think your clients are going to love that. Knowing that you're thinking about them and you're not asking them for business, you're letting them know, hey, we're here. We wanted you to know that we appreciate everything. Hope this, your first annual review of your loan has been great. Here's where the market trend is going. We just want to let you know we have your best interest at heart. I do that for 2 reasons. One is because I truly believe that, and 2, I don't want you know, everybody right now is getting stuff in the mail from Chase, Wells, all the big banks right now, telling them to refinance. And I don't want my clients going there. I want them coming back to me. If they go somewhere else, that's on me. It means I didn't touch them enough.
Hey guys, I do want to jump in one more time before I go. I went ahead and posted the interview that I did with Todd Booksman on annual reviews with Mortgage Coach. I mean, epic strategy. So I am jumping for reals, Danny. I'm handing it back to you, but I just wanted to shine a light on that we've added a couple videos and homework assignments for folks. Again, remember, before next week, make sure you've gone through at least one module. Come to these calls prepared with questions, and come to these calls prepared to share a success story. Danny, to you, and I'll let you guys close it out.
So just to kind of respond to this, the current client referrals, I'm going to rapid fire out a ton of ideas here that unfortunately we're not going to be able to go super deep on, but I'll just introduce them. So one is to create a referable experience. So that's the first thing that you need to do is you have to have an experience for that client that goes beyond their expectation, so that there's a certain amount of activation energy that goes into a person being willing to refer. When somebody refers you to their friend, family, client, whoever it is, they're taking a tremendous risk because they're personally attached to the outcome of your performance, which they have little to no control over. So if you don't have a consistent referable experience, it's going to be very difficult for you to expect others to be referring to you. So let's say you have the referable experience. Now you should implement what we call a captive audience marketing strategy, where you're intentionally throughout the process inserting in tactical moments a reminder to the client that they're having an above average experience, and then when they acknowledge that, then you can take that energy of the acknowledgement and appreciation for the great job that you're doing into an ask. And it can be as simple as something like, you know, don't keep this a secret. We're always here to help. We'd love to help others, you know, other people in your circle in the exact same way. You know, we're here and ready to help any other friends and family that you have. However you want to position it, you know, there's the classic close. You know, who do you know that it, you know, may be able to benefit from the same kind of advice? You can kind of go that way. But when I say tactical timeline, so there's certain points in the process where the client has a peak of emotion, right? Kind of a spike of emotion. So contingency removal is a spike of emotion. Loan documents going out on time and when they're kind of going through everything, spike of emotion, and then closing, obviously, spike of emotion. So those are tactical times where you can come in and capitalize, assuming that you have a referable experience that made those emotions good, then you can kind of come in and tactically overlay that. And then so that's kind of before, during transaction. So before transaction is referable experience, during transaction is the captive audience marketing, and then after transaction, you can certainly share your appreciation with them, you know, if it's gifting, if it's a handwritten note, if it's a phone call, but then the follow-up, which Todd is amazing at, Todd Booksman, and certainly check out those, that presentation where he does the annual reviews. We call them ABC calls. So if you take the letters of the alphabet, 26, you start with the A's, and you do the A's one week, the B's the next week. You'll cycle through your database twice a year. So depending on how many people you have, it makes it very manageable. Call all your A people, then you call all your B people the next week. So hopefully those kind of before, during, and after strategies are going to be super helpful. We are almost out of time here. Michele, is there anything you want to add as we wrap it up?
I would just say keep your head up, nose to the ground, and enjoy it. You know, it's going to be fun, and if you're not familiar with Mortgage Coach, get yourself familiar with it, because I think it's going to be the difference this year between your, keeping your realtors, for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I know this is a big commitment, taking time out of your day to join everybody up in Mastermind. Certainly follow the, Dave's ask there of, making sure you get through a module before next week, and hopefully we'll see you all then. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.